You needed a job. They made over $3.2 billion selling you the fog, mapping the litigation landscape of online hiring one company at a time. Hi, my name is Sarah Trimble, founder and CEO of the Job Applicant Perspective. This is anonymous user reviews for job ads. This is kind of a long one. I'm just going to get started. This is the fourth installment in a series that examines the online hiring industry company by company using their own public record as the source material and basic market structure as the baseline. ZipRecruiter is next, and ZipRecruiter is different. Taleo, Workday, and SuccessFactors were ATS companies. They sat inside the employer's hiring process, invisible infrastructure facing one direction. ZipRecruiter presents itself as something else entirely, the marketplace itself. The job board, the place where two sides of a labor market were supposed to meet in the open. That position carries a different obligation, and it left a different set of receipts. ZipRecruiter Inc. filed its S-1 in 2021 and remains a public company today. For the year ended in December 31st, 2024, the company reported $474 million in revenue. Its own filing describes in precise detail what it built, who it built it for, and what it chose not to measure. The receipts were always public. We're going to read them out loud. Caveats. The same two caveats from every installment apply here. First, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a structural systems theorist working from first principles of economics and publicly available data. The goal is not to make legal claims, it's to make the system visible. Second, this is an evolving body of work. The analysis sharpens with time and evidence. That is not a weakness of the method, it is the method. If you haven't read the framing piece, you can go back. I also put the framing piece in the other installments as a link there. Who this is for? Job seekers, those who've been treated as uncompensated data inputs in a survival market. I write this to document the theft of your time. Small businesses, you are paying for access to a flood the platform engineered. The noise in your inbox isn't a hiring problem, it's a line item in ZipRecruiter's revenue model. Municipalities, the entity collecting the click fees is not the entity carrying the public costs of extended search and tax erosion. The source of your frictional unemployment is now traceable. Legal practitioners and economists, 4 installments, 4 public records, 1 consistent architecture of harm. The evidentiary roadmap is now complete. The case construction is yours. Journalists, with 1 framework applied to 4 global leaders across 3 sectors, ATS, HCM, and job boards. The glitch narrative is dead. Skills gap too. I mean, I think I already killed that. Maybe I didn't. Depends on how you look at it, but this is an economic atrocity documented in the signatures of the people who built it. Happy Pulitzer. You should be writing. I can keep going, but you could too. You guys have a bigger network than I do. So that's what happens when you're not the New York Times or any of these fancy places. What a real two-sided labor market would require. The measuring stick has not changed. A functioning two-sided market requires, at minimum, that both sides can see what is happening, receive feedback when they act, and access tools that allow them to participate meaningfully. Not identical tools, not identical outcomes, symmetry in the basic infrastructure of participation. ZipRecruiter's own mission statement is, quote, to actively connect people to their next great opportunity. Its own filing calls it, quote, a two-sided marketplace for work that files, quote, like a matchmaker, that operates, quote, like a matchmaker. Those are not modest claims. Taken seriously, they imply exactly the standard above. We will measure them against it using their own words. What ZipRecruiter marketed? ZipRecruiter described itself in its own SEC filings as a system designed to connect job seekers and employers through intelligent matching. The language is consistent and specific. The 2024 10K describes ZipRecruiter as a, quote, two-sided marketplace for work that simplifies the job market for both job seekers and employers, end quote. It promises to work, quote, like a matchmaker curating job opportunities for job seekers and candidates for employers, end quote. It describes an AI system that, quote, continuously improves matching, end quote, using, quote, billions of interactions, end quote. It claims to compete for job seekers specifically on, quote, transparent feedback job seekers receive on the status of their applications, end quote. The last claim is worth holding on to. We will return to it. For the year ending December 31st, 2024, ZipRecruiter reported $474 million in revenue. Its own filings describe what that revenue was built on and what it was not. Failure mode 1 through 3. The stripping of consumer agency from participant to revenue stream, from unprotected consumer, from protected consumer in the newspaper era to unprotected in the online era, which became then unpaid revenue generator. The quote marketplace label ZipRecruiter uses implies a set of baseline consumer rights that existed in the newspaper era, but were surgically removed online. These expectations were not complicated. Number 1, visibility. The right to know what you're looking at before you act. Number 2, evaluation. The right to record and publish what you experienced after you act. Number 3, recourse. The right to fix the situation when something goes wrong. ZipRecruiter systematically dismantled all 3. This removal was not a neutral design choice, it was an economic one. In a survival market where exit is not an option for someone who needs to eat, a consumer who cannot see, evaluate, or seek recourse does not stop participating. They do the only thing left to do. They apply again. Confused participants who are structurally denied an exit are no longer users or customers. They are a recurring revenue stream. Every click born of desperation or lack of signal is another transaction the platform monetizes. ZipRecruiter didn't just fail to protect the consumer. They realized the consumer's lack of protection was their most profitable asset. Number 1, failure mode 1. Quote, the market for I keep using quotes, sorry. The market for lemons. White labeling the product, not the brand. In prior installments, white labeling meant platform invisibility. You didn't know you were inside Workday or Taleo. The infrastructure was hidden. ZipRecruiter is different. You know you are on ZipRecruiter. The brand is visible, but the product taxonomy is a black box. In a labor market, the, quote, products are the job ads on display. ZipRecruiter's filings describe a store where you can see the shelves, but you are structurally prevented from seeing what is inside the boxes. ZipRecruiter faced at minimum 3 categories of opacity that the platform had the information to resolve and chose not to. Not speaking of ghost jobs here, just 3 things at minimum. Number 1, not just is the job safe and real? The distribution shell game. ZipRecruiter's own filings describe a marketplace fed from 2 directions simultaneously. Jobs flow in from job acquisition partners like third-party sites and ATSs, and flow out to job distribution partners, over 1,000 sites, including search engines and talent communities, according to their S1 in April 2021 through 2025, also 2025 10K. Across 5 years of filings, ZipRecruiter describes no instrumentation to tell a job seeker where a listing originated, whether it was scraped, third-party, or genuine. While they explicitly acknowledge fraud and identity theft as a risk to their own bottom line, they describe no mechanism for surfacing that risk to the job seeker. They documented the danger for investors and left the door unlocked for the workforce. Number 2, is this 1 job or 20? A single employer posting the same role across multiple titles or sites creates an illusion of choice. ZipRecruiter knew this. The S1 glossary and 2024 10K revealed that ZipRecruiter explicitly excludes evergreen roles, evergreen jobs, listings open over 90 days from its own average number of days job stays posted metric. Why? Because evergreen jobs distort the data. They identified these listings, named them in the SEC filings, and cleaned them out of their investor-facing performance metrics to provide a more accurate picture of the market. No corresponding disclosure was built for job seekers. The platform used the truth to satisfy Wall Street and left the distorted inventory on the shelves for the job seekers to navigate for free. Is there an ATS behind this listing, the hidden destinations? ZipRecruiter's filings describe 3 distinct paths for an application once you actually decide to choose it. ZipRecruiter's built-in ATS, a third-party ATS like Workday, or direct to an employer. The 2024 10K Item 1 admits that for employers already using third-party ATSs, they seamlessly populate candidates into their existing workflow. Whether your application goes into a Success Central dashboard, I'll talk about that in a minute, or a third-party black box is a material fact that determines your chance of outcome. ZipRecruiter documented these seamless integrations as a selling point for employers across every filing since 2021. None of that detail was surfaced to the job seeker. The destination of the candidate's data was a feature for the buyer and a secret for the input. The revenue of opacity. This is white labeling of the product. By hiding the product taxonomy, what type of listing it is, where it goes, and whether it's genuine, ZipRecruiter created the exact conditions George Akerlof warned about in his Market for Lemons in 1970. And they put it in SEC filings as a documentable feature. When a buyer, the job seeker, cannot distinguish a high-quality, real job from a lemon, a duplicate job, a scraped job, a fraudulent job, or including an experience you might not want, when you're signing up for a job, you're kind of like signing up for a movie. When you're signing up for a job ad, it's going to be 2 hours, 2 weeks, 2 months, never start or be identity theft. Who knows? ZipRecruiter does, but they're not going to tell you. The market fails in this scenario. They could tell some of this information. They tell none of it. Across 5 years of filings, ZipRecruiter claimed to compete for job seekers on transparent feedback and trusted brand. Yet the market topology, the actual map of where the user is and what they're touching, appears nowhere in their list of competitive advantages. The omission is a stable architectural choice. The platform that could have built visibility collected $474 million in 2024 revenue by selling the fog instead. This is the textbook definition. When you buy a job ad with your time, you don't know what kind of time you're committing. You don't know how much you're going to pay in time. Is it 2 weeks, 2 hours, 2 months? Or it's never going to start, or it's identity theft. And you did it wrong because you didn't know, because they wouldn't tell you. This is the definition of Akerlof's lemon market. Not even with just ghost jobs, just right in their filings. Failure mode 2, the marketplace review infrastructure failure. The baseline, Amazon, Etsy, and the rules of the road. If failure mode 1 is about what job seekers couldn't see before they acted, failure mode 2 is about what they're prevented from evaluating after. ZipRecruiter operates a marketplace. That is their own word, used consistently from their S1 through their 2025 10K. The 2024 10K defines it as, quote, a two-sided marketplace for work. Quote, two-sided, unquote, two-sided, is not a vibe. It's a structural claim. It implies that both sides have the tools to participate meaningfully and protect the market's integrity. Amazon does not write product reviews. It builds the infrastructure so buyers can warn others about a lemon. Etsy does not vouch for every seller. It publishes seller ratings so the market can self-discipline. The intermediary's job is not to guarantee the outcome, but to make the transaction legible. In every other sector of the internet, a marketplace that hides the buyer's experience is called a black market. ZipRecruiter calls it simplifying the job market. The receipts of asymmetry, what was built for whom? ZipRecruiter's filings describe in vivid detail the sophisticated evaluation infrastructure built for one side of the market. For employers, the S1 defines the thumbs up rate, a metric ZipRecruiter tracked and celebrated as it grew from 39% to 56%. They built a built-in ATS so hiring teams could review, rate, and manage candidates. They built great match labels and act fast alerts to help employers prioritize. The results? Employers were handed a high-resolution telescope to evaluate candidates. The filings describe what was built for job seekers in exchange. For job seekers across 4 years of filings from 2021 to 2025, the feature set remains frozen. One-click applications, a dashboard, and, quote, Phil, the automated recruiter. The omission: not once in 4 years did ZipRecruiter add a mechanism for a job seeker to rate an employer's process, flag a ghost listing, or report a misrepresentation to the rest of the market. ZipRecruiter's own February 2025 corporate presentation prepared for investors, not job seekers, makes this asymmetry explicit in a single slide. Under the heading Simple Job Seeker Journey, the company illustrates 3 steps: guidance on which jobs are a match, curated opportunities, and updates when an employer views their application or gives them a rating. The employer rates the job seeker. The job seeker rates nothing. That is not an omission in the slide. That is an accurate illustration of the architecture. The asymmetry ZipRecruiter built into the product for 14 years is the same asymmetry they presented to investors as the product's design in 2025. No review mechanism appears because none exists. The investor presentation is not missing a slide. The marketplace is missing half of its infrastructure. Job seekers aren't half of the market. They're half of the stakeholders. They're not half of the market. They're 98% of the market globally. This is the definition of the lemon market, upside down completely. The transparency charade. ZipRecruiter claims it competes for job seekers on transparent feedback job seekers receive on the status of their application. This is a category error dressed as a feature. Notification is not transparency. Telling a job seeker that an employer viewed their application is a status update. It tells a job seeker what happened to them. Real transparency would tell the market what happened at that employer. Amazon doesn't just tell you your package was delivered. It lets you tell the world if the box was empty. ZipRecruiter ensures that no one gets to know. The $134 million choice, the capacity to build this existed. In 2024 alone, ZipRecruiter spent $134.8 million on research and development, 28% of their total revenue. According to every annual report from the S1 through the 2025 10K, R&D spending went towards matching algorithms, the ATS that processes candidates for employers, data processing and analysis pipelines, and the AI infrastructure underlying Phil. They had the resources to build Phil, an AI capable of sending 65 million messages a month to drive engagement. They chose not to build a review button. Consumer protection infrastructure that comes standard with a $40 pair of tennis shoes did not exist for the person trying to feed their family. That was not an oversight. That was a resource allocation decision made with $134.8 million in research and development budget available in 2024 alone. When I say job applicant perspective is like Yelp in a world of professionally managed fine dining with no health department, no FDA, where the restaurants openly make more money by not serving the hungry people food, I'm not joking. This is socially an atrocity. Like, this is way upside down. It's not okay. Instead, for 9 consecutive years, the only metric ZipRecruiter offered the SEC as proof of job seeker satisfaction was an App Store rating. App Store rating measures if the app is pretty and the buttons work. They do not measure if the jobs are real. They do not measure if the one click led to a black hole. An App Store rating measures whether the app is easy to use. Using it to validate a labor market is like using restaurant ambience reviews to validate a health inspection. The result is exactly what the filings document through their silence. Employers received a structured evaluation fortress. Job seekers received a star rating on an app store and a bot that told them to, quote, act fast on roles that they could not vet. ZipRecruiter calls this a two-sided marketplace. It is a one-sided extraction engine with a consumer-facing front door. Failure mode 3, the resource gap error, correction as a luxury good. Failure mode 1 is about the blindfold, pre-action. Failure mode 2 is about the gag order, post-action. Failure mode 3 is about the total absence of an emergency brake. In any complex system, especially one processing billions of interactions, things fail. Keywords misfire, tech glitches, listings are faked. In a functioning marketplace, error correction is the baseline. In ZipRecruiter's architecture, error correction is a gated service provided only to one side, less than 1% in the US of their users. About 1%. The paid employer fortress. ZipRecruiter's filings are explicit about who deserves help when the machine breaks across every report from the S1 in 2021 to the 2025 10K. The technical support risk factor remains identical. Our paid employers depend on our technical support organization to assist paid employers with service support and resolve technical issues. That's from our 2025 10K, item 1A. The filing identifies the support relationship, names the holder, and warns investors that failing this relationship is a material risk. For the employer, tech support is a documented pillar of the business model. For the job seeker, silence. For the job seeker, the filing is not just incomplete, it is void. Across 5 years of public records, ZipRecruiter describes no dedicated channel to report fraudulent listings, no dispute mechanism for applications lost in a third-party ATS handoff, no escalation path for identity risk, theft, a risk that 2025 10K acknowledges for investors but ignores for the victims. The Amazon standard versus the ZipRecruiter reality. If you buy a counterfeit item on Amazon, there's a claims process, a dispute resolution infrastructure, and a dedicated support channel. These aren't features, they are the structural integrity of a marketplace. A job seeker who submits their social security number or resume to a fraudulent listing has no such harbor. They've entered a market where the intermediary acknowledges the presence of bad actors to its shareholders, but provides zero recourse to its participants. The 2023 10K risk factor section states explicitly, we've experienced multiple data security incidences involving the unauthorized access of personal information of job seekers, utilizing our services, including their resumes, as well as affecting our business clients' accounts, some of which have required us to notify affected individuals and or regulators. This is the company confirming in a filed document that job seeker personal data, including resumes, has already been compromised. The platform acknowledged the breach, notified regulators, and built no dispute mechanism for the people whose data was taken. The harm was documented. The response infrastructure was not. Negligence is a stable state. The tech support risk factor tells the whole story. It was drafted once in 2021 and carried forward word for word for 4 years. The term paid employer is the only subject. Job seekers, 98% of the market, were never mentioned. This is not an oversight in the documentation. It is an accurate map of the engineering. When the employer system fails, a support organization swings into gear. When the job seeker's experience fails, when their data is harvested or their career is stalled by a glitch, they are left with nothing but an App Store rating and a bot named Phil. ZipRecruiter didn't build a two-sided marketplace, though they definitely marketed one. They built a gated community for employers and a sensory deprivation tank for the workforce. Failure mode 1 through 3, from unprotected consumer to unpaid revenue generator. These 3 failure modes taken together produce one of the most textbook examples of George Akerlof's market for lemons in economic history without requiring ghost jobs to exist at all. It's documented in their SEC filings, and it is actively controlling millions of people's ability to eat. Think about it. When tech support fails for employers, they lose money. When tech support fails for job seekers, they make money. They just make more. There's no repercussions. A market without any discipline controlling 1 billion people's ability to eat and the foundations of global economic stability. Wildly an error in choice. We need to fix it. Failure mode 4 and 5, the revenue architecture built on top of that removal. These 3 failure modes describe what job seekers lost access to when hiring moved online. What follows describes what was built in the space that removal created. In failure mode 4 and 5 are revenue architecture that required the first 3 to function. The opacity was not incidental to the business model, it was load-bearing. What ZipRecruiter built on top of it, a filtering system in a market it claimed was a matching system, and a volume engine running bidirectionally, only works at scale if the consumer cannot see clearly enough to push back. Failure mode 4, the matchmaker charade. Documenting a filtering engine as a marriage market. Readers of prior installments know this pattern. ZipRecruiter's version is very publicly damning. They built their system from the ground up, named what they were building, and then filed the evidence of its failure with the SEC. The claim, the dedicated matchmaker. ZipRecruiter's own filings described it as a matching system. The S1 in 2021 and the 2024 10K repeated the same core process. Our AI-powered marketplace acts as a dedicated matchmaker. This is not just marketing. It is a stated description of their product's function, filed under penalty of perjury. A matchmaker's success is measured by the match, the coordination of two parties into a successful union. The metric, the extraction of the payer. What gets measured is what gets managed. What gets managed is what gets built. The metrics ZipRecruiter chose are precisely the metrics a filtering system needs and exactly not the metrics a matching system needs. The metrics ZipRecruiter uses to manage its business tells the actual story. Across every annual report through the 2025 10K, ZipRecruiter tracks only two key operating metrics: quarterly paid employers and revenue per paid employer. These are the only tools used to formulate business plans and make strategic decisions. There's not one metric for match quality, no measurement of offer acceptance, no tracking of high retention. In ZipRecruiter's matchmaker universe, the marriage doesn't matter, only the cover charge does. The thumbs up illusion. The only outcome adjacent metric described in the filings is the thumbs up rate. The S1 defines this as the percentage of great match applicants that employer likes. Crucially, it measures whether the filters surfaced a candidate the employer found appealing. It does not measure whether that candidate was hired. It is a filtering metric dressed as a matching metric, and it is the only outcome ZipRecruiter has chosen to monitor. They monitor whether the filtering got you somebody that looks good. They didn't monitor whether you actually hired that person. The architecture, engineering the Nash collapse. The filing confirms the matchmaker label is a mask for a sophisticated exclusion engine. The 2024 10K describes great match labels and act fast alerts as product innovations. These are ranking and exclusion mechanisms designed to help employers ignore the very volume ZipRecruiter's one-click architecture generates. We'll get there next. The result is a Nash non-converging equilibrium documented in the filing itself. The job seeker applies to everything because they're operating in an information vacuum. The employer is flooded with volume and purchases. ZipRecruiter's filtering tools manage it. The platform collects fees from the employer to solve a noise problem that the platform's own architecture created. Neither side is acting irrationally. Both are responding logically to a market whose information architecture was designed and documented to prevent coordination. A deliberate gap on the Q3 2022 earnings call, a $227 million in revenue, the peak of the at $227 million in revenue, the peak of the business, CEO Ian Siegel told investors, quote, "Our service is a matchmaker, so the more inventory it has to match for employers, the more opportunity it has to bring the right employer together with the right job seeker." The metrics reported that same quarter, paid employer count and revenue per employer. No match outcomes, no hires. The claim and the measurement have never been in the same document. This is not a legacy failure. ZipRecruiter built this bidirectional noise machine in 2010 and filed the blueprints in 2021. They reported the same employer count and employer revenue metrics every quarter while claiming to be a matchmaker. The gap between the claim and the metric has been visible in the public record since the day of their IPO. ZipRecruiter didn't fail to coordinate the market. They succeeded in monetizing its collapse. Failure mode 5, the Jevons paradox. One-click apply is a documented DDoS attack. This is what makes ZipRecruiter distinct from every prior installment. ZipRecruiter is the first actor in our series to hit all 5 failure modes in the same company, openly articulated. Across every filing from the S1 in 2021 to the 2025 10K, ZipRecruiter describes its bidirectional friction reduction architecture as a competitive advantage. It was not a side effect of scale, it was the roadmap. I actually thought that ZipRecruiter would only have that one and maybe one other. I didn't realize they would have all 5. I know most all the companies I'm aware of have at least one of them. I just didn't expect ZipRecruiter to have 5, so it's new for me. The Jevons paradox. Efficiency as a weapon. In 1865, William Stanley Jevons identified that making a resource like coal more efficient to use doesn't reduce consumption, it explodes it. ZipRecruiter applied this to the job application. By building simple one-click applications for job seekers and one-click invitations for employers, S1 in their business, they reduced the cost of engagement to near zero. As Jevons predicted, this didn't make hiring faster, it made the market collapse under the weight of its own volume. ZipRecruiter didn't stumble into this. They filed it with the SEC as a product innovation. The network effect of noise, the S1 business accelerating effects, describes a self-perpetuating cycle. More jobs attract more job seekers. More job seekers attract more employers. But in a market where job seeker time is free and one-click tools are universal, these aren't matching effects. These are noise effects. At peak revenue, the company made this logic explicit. The company's own executive confirmed as much. Responding to analyst questions about tech layoffs and rising unemployment in November 2022, Siegel called the coming wave of job seekers, quote, a silver lining boon because, quote, the more inventory it has to match for employers, the more opportunities it has. Workforce distress was not a social cost to be managed. It was inventory. Phil, the AI bot sending 65 million messages a month, is the engine running on top of this volume. ZipRecruiter documented nearly 2/3 of applications happening on mobile devices, where the friction of vetting a job is at its lowest and the impulse to one click is at its highest. How is this not variable ratio reinforcement? It very much is. This is a slot machine. We're playing slots for people's futures, you know? That's what this is. That's why for employers, if you don't have information, they'll go somewhere else. For job seekers, since they can't go anywhere else and everybody's running the same scam, they're just going to play games. Casino, Hope Casinos is when Americans' futures got sold out to corporations. Like, we have to do it back. We have to take it back. Revenue recognition, monetizing the click, not the hire. I'm going to swear a bit. Honest to God, though, the most holy fuck moment for an auditor is found in the revenue recognition notes. In S1 2021, recognize revenue when a candidate clicks on or applies to a job. In 2025, 10K Note 2 reveals the floor fell further. Revenue is now recognized simply when a candidate clicks on a job. The application trigger was removed. Revenue now ends at the click, not the interview, not the hire, not even the completed form. ZipRecruiter's revenue model is structurally aligned with the moment of confusion. If a job seeker clicks on a lemon roll out of curiosity or desperation, ZipRecruiter gets paid. They have no fiscal incentive to ensure the click leads to a career. They only need to ensure the click happens. The DDoS business model, sell the fire, sell the extinguisher. The framing describes one-click apply as a distributed denial of service attack against hiring infrastructure, flooding systems with so much low-intent volume that they stop functioning. ZipRecruiter's filings describe the attack as a 3-tier revenue stream. Subscription revenue, pay to enter the market. Performance-based revenue, pay for every click the one-click engine generates. Upsell services, pay for a temporary boost to be seen above the very noise the first 2 tiers create. The employer pays to post, pays for the one-click flood, and then pays a premium to shout over the flood, and pays for the filter to filter the flood that they paid for to create. ZipRecruiter collects at every point in the cycle they design to be endless, and job seekers power it with their free time and their desperation to find work. So, I thought we ended this type of thing in the 1860s. Complex dynamic systems are complex dynamics. This is absolutely this would do all the things I said when the floor fell out of the labor market. When job seeker time became free, that's what this is. The verdict. A productized market failure. When the 2021 10K reports a 55% increase in great match applications, they frame it as a match quality. In reality, it is a filtering system struggling to keep up with an engineering deluge. This is not a failure mode inherited from an industry that didn't know better. This was deliberate. The architecture was built in 2010, filed in 2021, and the revenue recognition was stripped down to the click by 2025. ZipRecruiter didn't build a bridge. They built a high-speed trading floor for human attention and followed the blueprints with the SEC as an innovation. tallying the distributed costs. As before, the numbers are not a designation. They are a destination or designation. They are a roadmap indicative of magnitude. I expect actual people in their specific fields the statisticians to come through and make this more nuanced. But job seekers, the ghost hour tax. ZipRecruiter tracks every application at the transaction level. The revenue model pay-per-click depends on it. Yet the platform stopped publishing application volume in 2018. The number that would most directly quantify the cost to the workforce is the exact number ZipRecruiter chose to hide. The documented floor. We know for sure that in 2018, 430 million applications, that was ZipRecruiter's last public figure. So we have that. The extrapolated reality in 2026, based on ZipRecruiter's current 170 million job seeker count, they had 110 million at the time, and their historical 3 to 9 to 1 application ratio, the lifetime volume is at least 663 million applications. We apply a conservative 2-hour search cycle for this one because they do one-click apply, taking an hour off, but still having the hours on because of how messed up they make the market. This is not for the application, it's for the cycle. Vetting, applying, and navigating the silence of 5 failure modes in a market this degraded and this on fire. And the $22 an hour median wage. The raw documented floor, $18.9 billion. That's with the amount of applications they said they had in 2018. The extrapolated floor, $29.2 billion. When we apply to Chodorow, Reich, Federal Reserve, that one thing I took from the last one too. I'm sorry, not good at the names yet. Opportunity cost multiplier to the U.S. portion, the high-end extraction reaches $46.7 billion. ZipRecruiter recognized revenue on every one of those clicks. It built zero infrastructure to measure what those clicks cost the people who made them. Small business, engineering the flood, charging for the bucket. Small businesses are secondary victims of a noise engine. They may actually have paid to enter in this case because small businesses do. On ZipRecruiter. The mechanism is a subscription trap unique to ZipRecruiter. They are also in a slot machine. They just don't know it because they're not the one pulling the lever. The volume trap, one-click tools flooded the market. Large firms used AI to filter the mess. Small businesses used human labor. At 4.6 hours of noise sorting per role, the aggregate annual productivity drain on the U.S. small business is $1.4 billion. The access cost inversion. To be seen above the noise the platform created, small businesses must pay daily boost fee. They pay for the subscription, they pay for the noise, and then they pay to be seen despite the noise. Benchmarking blindness. Small businesses diagnose a workforce problem where they actually have an algorithm problem. They're fighting a market for lemons where their genuine human job offerings are indistinguishable from ghost listings. The local labor drain, a job seeker navigating platform running 5 failure modes simultaneously, is not available for the summer role at the local restaurant, the apprenticeship at the regional contractor, the part-time position at the independent retailer. Small businesses are not losing candidates to better employers. They're losing them to a system that captured candidate attention and redirected it towards enterprise volume, with nothing left over for the local market clearing. Municipalities, part 3. The downstream carry friction at the entrance to the labor market compounds everything downstream. While ZipRecruiter cited macroeconomic factors for declining openings in its Q4 2025 call, I use Seeking Alpha again. It's fun for me, learning all about these investor sites. It ignores its own role in extending search duration. Okun's law, every 0.1% increase in structural unemployment caused by search friction and misfiring filters represents $56 billion in foregone annual GDP at our current rate. The public ledger. Municipalities carry the tax erosion, safety net utilization, and workforce board strain. ZipRecruiter collects the click fee and public body absorbs the friction costs. I'm not even including the fact that a market like this would kill wages everywhere, because whenever you have markets like this, where you have people who without a captive workforce that has to work for below fees, whether it was child labor laws, whether it was slavery back in the day, it always drops the wages everywhere. So their tax base would have been eroded, not just because of the people looking for work, but because of people who would have made less because of the existence of this market. I talked about it in a previous blog post. The cumulative picture, the costs were not lost, they were distributed. Job seekers up to $46.7 billion in extracted time and opportunity. Small businesses, $1.4 billion in annual productivity loss. Municipalities, billions in foregone GDP and safety net carry. I don't have a way to guess how much 5 failure modes would have impacted the GDP, but it would have been a measurable impact on Okun's law. That's why I put it there. ZipRecruiter's revenue. A total revenue from its 2021 IPO through the end of 2025 was $3.215 billion. By comparing this revenue to the company's own application volume, we find the efficiency of their business model. At the documented 430 million applications for every one application ZipRecruiter reported, $1 ZipRecruiter reported of revenue, it extracted $5.90 in uncompensated labor from the workforce. At the extrapolated floor at 663 million applications, the ratio rises to 9.08 extracted for every $1 of revenue. That's only from the workforce. That's not from municipalities or small businesses. These are the floors. They do not include the small business drain or the municipal carry. This is the raw math of a platform that monetizes the engagement rather than the outcome. The ceiling of value versus the floor of extraction. To understand what the platform delivered against what it extracted, we applied ZipRecruiter's own numbers to create the most generous possible ceiling of value. Using their peak record of 136,000 quarterly paid employers from Q3 2022, and assuming a high rate of 5 hires per employer, the platform would produce roughly 2.7 million hires annually against a lifetime floor of 663 million applications. The math is devastating. The overwhelming majority of applications produced a click fee for ZipRecruiter and a ghost hour for the job seeker. The bottom line, ZipRecruiter recognized revenue on every click, regardless of outcome. The number of clicks that actually produced a hire is a figure ZipRecruiter has never chosen to disclose, despite tracking it at the transaction level for every dollar they earn. What was extracted from the workforce dwarfs what was reported to investors. What was delivered to the workforce is a number the platform was never built to measure. 98% of the consumers in this two-sided market. I don't even know how to check the research. 5 failure modes. The failure modes described in this analysis draw on the same foundational work referenced in the Taleo installments and Workday and the other ones. These are not novel observations. They're the kind of work that basic due diligence for a coordination market would reference. Market structure, Akerlof, Nash, Roche and Tirole, Chodorek, and Carboninus, the cyclicality of the opportunity cost of employment from the Journal of Political Economy. Let's see here. System design and infrastructure. I have Nielsen on usability engineering, the ACM code of ethics. I have one on Okun's law and the primary source data of ZipRecruiter from the SECs. I got the SEC filings again and also some quarterly earnings transcripts from Seeking Alpha. Wage data, I use the U.S. Bureau of Labor and Statistics, Office for National Statistics as well. For hours and earnings, that's because ZipRecruiter is also in Canada and the UK. And the job applicant perspective is the company producing this series. 4 installments in, the pattern is clear. What varies is not the architecture, it's the layer at which each company operated. Taleo and SuccessFactors were inside the employer's process. Workday wrapped that process in enterprise software and scaled it globally. ZipRecruiter stood at the entrance of the market itself and monetized the confusion before anyone got through the door. TJOB is what an online job board should have been the entire time. Amazon, but for job ads. Anonymous Uber for hiring experiences. Let employers post whatever they need from whomever they want to help them with that service. And let job seekers vet their experience, good, bad, or otherwise. Use the info to let people make informed choices about what works for them. Use Bayesian statistics and protocol described, and I put links to, I've described it previously, I've done blog posts on it. I have those 7 blog posts on that. And here to make those decisions as accurate to reality as possible. It's the thing that ZipRecruiter and every other job board on the market could have built. The thing that would have made the market function, not profited on its destruction. The thing that was never built because the confusion wasn't really more valuable. It was just easier to extract value from than clarity. There's no argument to be made that the confusion of the current job market is more valuable because it's just easier. You don't have to change anything. Change doesn't mean it's less valuable. It just means it's changed, You don't have the capacity to evaluate. That's epistemic collapse to say otherwise. We are not building it because it's revolutionary. We're building it because it's repair. We are what an online two-sided labor market actually looks like. We are. Conclusion, 4 companies, 4 public records, 1 pattern. Taleo showed what it looked like when the system faces only one direction. Workday showed what it looks like when that system also disappears behind somebody else's name. SuccessFactors showed what it looks like when the CEO describes the product as broken on a public earnings call and the fee meter keeps running anyway. ZipRecruiter shows what it looks like when the failure modes are not inherited from the enterprise software legacy decisions, but engineered from the ground up into a consumer marketplace. When information opacity is the revenue model. When one-click apply runs in both directions as a competitive advantage. When the Jevons paradox is a product roadmap filed with the SEC, and it shows something else, something the prior 3 installments approached, but this one makes unavoidable. Job seekers entered this market as consumers. They came to acquire something. The platform systematically removed the information infrastructure that would have allowed them to do that safely, not as a side effect of the business model, but as the business model itself. Confused consumers apply more. More applications generate more revenue. Protecting the job seeker's ability to make informed choices would have reduced the confusion that drove the volume that produced the fees with ease. My variation produces engagement as well. It just produces engagement in community and trust. It doesn't improve engagement, which craves effort. It's like produce engagement with ease. Not in the same way. This is not a design flaw. That is a decision documented in the company's own filings filed with the SEC, available to anyone willing to read carefully and do the arithmetic. Millions of people described this accurately for 2 decades. I'm willing to say billions at this point. They said the jobs weren't real. They said the process was broken. Wall Street Journal started reporting on it in 2013. They said they didn't know that they're applying to. Why nothing came back? The institutional response was to tell them to optimize their LinkedIn profiles. This filing says what they said. The filing is real. This is epistemic situation we live in that drives the production of this series. This is epistemic collapse. We're not talking about science. We're not talking about reality because it's real. We're talking about reality because you're allowed to be the one to say that reality is real. That's not reality. We will continue to document the HR tech and talent acquisition companies' systemic economic harm using their SEC filings in this series, as long as it takes to break the experts out of the structural delusion that is tearing the country apart. That list is long. We take requests. I'm on to Indeed right now, and honestly, I thought as a recruiter, Indeed is, we have to have a Nuremberg trials, like an economic Nuremberg. Like, I'm pretty sure we have to have an economic Nuremberg. Indeed's is scaled worse than this. It's atrocious. Like, this behavior, like, we need a level of an economic Nuremberg, to be honest. But I mean, for now, the information needs to get out there. We need to document it. It needs to be out there. But this behavior is unacceptable and it needs repair. But the job applicant is part of the repair, and part of my ability to do something here is to write it down and say it out loud. I was in a framework too before I really started studying this. I'm not anymore. I'm going to help break other people out. I hope you'll join me. In reality, we are on the ground. It is absolutely in shambles. It's awful and it's scary and it's tough. But you know what the great thing about standing on solid ground is, again? It's a great place to build from, you know? Like, think of it like Tafiti and Taka. I think that's what happened here. Maui, aka the online hiring vendors, they stole the heart out of the labor market and turned Tafiti into Taka. We have to bring it back. The heart is their voice, their ability, user experience. Job seekers never used to be silent to the market itself. The market is not the employer. This is a principal agent error to the extreme, to people's ability to live. The foundations of the economy. It's not okay. We have to shift it. And it means we have to face the reality of what it already is. But it's like Maui taking the heart. Like, you don't have to have meant to cause this level of harm, but you still got to undo it, you know? You don't have to have meant to, like, through a little cigarette, and you didn't mean to set Yellowstone on fire, but we still got to put it out, you know? That's the thing. So anyway, that's all. Hope you guys all have a good one. Stay sane out there, and please be kind to each other. Trust people, not systems. People. The world made the internet. The internet made the world into a snowstorm. We have to trust people on the roads, you know? Yeah, I would say you don't put on your shoe to feel the grass, you take your shoe off. You talk to scouts, that's the way. So anyway, stay sane, be safe, and I'll talk to you guys next time on Indeed. So